When is the best time to upgrade to an S-Corp? Lately, I've seen so many folks on social media say that you should do it at 40,000 net profit. I've even seen some folks say you should do it as soon as you start your business because it reduces your self-employment taxes. But there are a few things that they aren't telling you. So today, I'm going to show you how an S-Corp actually works from the numbers perspective. I'm going to show you what it really costs to be an S-Corp. I'm going to show you what would happen if you did actually upgrade at 40,000 net profit. And stick around to the end as I'll show you the real amount that you should upgrade to an S-Corp and why. Let's go. What is going on, family? It's your favorite uncle cousin, Tyrone Gregory, here today to run those numbers for an S-Corp. As I stated in the beginning of this video, there's so much information on social media that talks about upgrading your current business status to an S-Corp to save on self-employment tax. However, the thresholds in which they set is, to say the least, misleading. And the reason why is because they're leaving out a lot of the cost associated with upgrading to an S-Corp. So I'm going to break down exactly how much you'll save versus how much it'll cost you when you decide to upgrade to an S-Corp. But before we get into that, let me say this. An S-Corp is a tax election. It is not an actual legal entity. There is no paperwork that you can file at the state to choose to become an S-Corp. You can either be an LLC or a C-Corp, and then you fill out an application requesting permission to be taxed as an S-Corp with the IRS. So do understand, if you are an S-Corp, if you are an LLC and you upgrade to an S-Corp, you are still an LLC. You're just being taxed as an S-Corp. Same with a C corporation. If you are a C corporation and you choose to be taxed as an S-Corp, you will always be an actual C corporation. You're just being taxed as an S-Corp. That's important to note because the underlying entity is what you're going to be governed by. Okay, so even as an LLC, your operating agreement, that's what you're governed by. The S-Corp election simply changes how you will be taxed. All right, cool. So what I'm getting ready to show you right now is something that I developed and used for my clients when helping them determine at what financial level, at what profit level would it be, or would it make financial sense for them to change to or upgrade to or be taxed as an S-Corp. So let me show you right now. This is the calculator that I developed. It says S-Corp versus sole proprietor. You can replace sole proprietor also with single member LLC or whatever. As you can see on the left side here, this is the sole proprietor estimate. This is the numbers as a sole proprietor versus here on the right, you're going to see the numbers as an S corporation. Note the box here, the zero. It says this is going to be the net amount. Highlight this here. This is going to be the net amount before wages and payroll taxes. This represents your profit. For example, the number that's going to go there, let's say, for example, if you made 100,000 for the year, but you wrote off 60,000 and you was left over with 40,000. That number, the net profit, that's the starting point for determining at which point should we switch over to or be taxed as an S-Corp. So that's what that number is going to represent here. So for purposes of this example, I really didn't have a particular number in mind. I'm just going to say that I do have a particular number in mind. My apologies, 40,000, because that's when people say when your business is profitable at 40,000, you should switch over to an S corporation. So let's put 40,000 in that box. Now let me blow this up just a little bit here so we can actually see that. So here we are, 40,000 net profit. Now look over here in the sole proprietor estimates over here in this box. The total self-employment tax that you would be responsible for off of 40,000 net profit is $5,652. That is the self-employment tax. And note, I'm gonna put this here. The whole reasoning for an S-Corp is to reduce self-employment taxes only. It is not going to reduce federal tax, state tax, or anything like that. It is simply there to help reduce self-employment taxes. And of course, there's a few other things you can do with S-Corp, but for right now, we're focusing on changing or reducing the self-employment tax. Okay, so at 40,000 net profit, your self-employment tax is going to be $5,652. Now, here is the thing. Over here on the S-Corp estimate side, we see a bunch of numbers. One, there's a salary. I put it as a percentage. As an employee, this is what you're going to pay as an employee versus what you're going to pay as an employer. Now, let me explain this. When you opt to be taxed as an S-Corp, you are doing two things. You, one, are separating yourself tax-wise, because now you're saying that this company is, for tax purposes, it's standalone entity, okay? And it's also saying for tax purposes, you are now going to be employed by this entity, which is the entity you own. So the amount that you're going to pay yourself, so you're going to be an employee and an employer. You're going to be both when you do S-Corp. This is how it saves taxes, though, because as an, how could I say this? As an employer, the amount that you pay yourself as an employee gets to be deducted from the business taxes. You're not able to do that when you're a single member LLC. Okay, you're not able to do that when you're a sole proprietor. When you are a single member LLC and a sole proprietor, the amount you pay yourself is simply deducted as a draw. However, when you upgrade to an S-Corp, the amount that you pay yourself now becomes deductible. What also gets deducted is the half of the self-employment taxes. And here's where a lot of the savings come in. So let me put this back on the screen so we can break this down. Oh, one more note. Let me say this. The reason this is here, and keep this in mind, when you elect to become an S-Corp, you are required by law to pay yourself a reasonable wage if your company is profitable. And that's, again, a whole different conversation, because if your company is not profitable, you should not be even considering S-Corp status. But that's a conversation for another day. So let me repeat myself. If your company is profitable, like we are in this example, we're $40,000 profitable, you have to put yourself on payroll and pay yourself a reasonable wage. Now, let me put myself out here and say this. A reasonable wage is not specific, meaning that there is no set amount in the tax law that says a reasonable wage is this specific amount, it is this specific percentage. It's not. It's based all upon the facts and circumstances. Me personally, when it comes to reasonable wage, I always advise my clients to say, hey, do research. What does Indeed.com say the average salary is for somebody in your position doing what you do? What does Monster.com say? What does LinkedIn say? Do your research to see what the average salary is for somebody in your position doing what you do for your company. What that number is, that should be reasonable, because I'm sure if it ever came down to the courts, those are the numbers, or that's the research that they're going to rely on. So just get ahead of the game. All right. Back to the calculator. So for this example, I'm going to say that we are going to pay ourselves 35% salary. 35% of that 40,000 we are going to say is going to be given to us as an employee, meaning that we are going to take a total W-2 income home of $14,000. Now, if you're curious why I chose this number, it's simple. As of right now, as of the recording of this video, I do believe the federal minimum wage is about $7 and some change, right? Not including every state has their different wage brackets and things like that, but at least the federal minimum wage is about $7.50, $7.25. So if you take that $7 and whatever changes the 25 or 50 cents, and you multiply it by 40 hours, a 40-hour work week, that gives you a certain amount, and you multiply that by 52 weeks in a year, you get 13,000. So at minimum, that number right here, the total W-2 income should be very close to the federal minimum wage. All right? Because think about it, that's at 40 hours a week. If you are the sole owner of a business, you working way more than 40 hours, more like 400, but that's either here nor there. So that's how I came up with that number, trying to be realistic. Even though we know we paying more and the states have their own minimum wage and things like that. So keep that in mind as well. So at 35, oh, wrong button. So at 35%, we are taking home on a W-2 from our company $14,000. We are still going to have $1,071 deducted from our W-2 income. Let's just say it's here, Social Security and Medicare of $1,071. Over here on the employer side, these are all the amounts that's going to be the result from having an S-Corp. On the employer side, let me move that up. The income from the S-Corp now goes down to $26,000. The employer, which is going to be what's left over, the employer, your company, you are also going to pay Social Security, Medicare. The thing of it is, this is going to be deductible. This amount here is going to be deductible. There's additional payroll taxes that also has to be paid, but is deductible. And then the K-1, which is the difference between your net profits, your payroll, and everything that's being deducted for the payroll, which you also include on your personal 1040. I hope all that makes sense. Let me say it again. On this side here, this is the amount that you're going to receive as a W-2 employee from your company. On this side here, this is all the amounts that you're going to receive from your S-Corp. Okay, this amount being deductible from the S-Corp as well as this 861. Now, I'm going to scroll down and we're going to see something here. Here is the total taxes paid. This is the summary. As an S-Corp, if you were to make, as a sole proprietor, at $40,000 net profit, you would pay $5,652 in self-employment tax. As an S-Corp, at $40,000, you would only pay $3,003 in self-employment tax, giving you a savings of $1,725. Now, I know you're looking at, okay, well, what is this admin cost here? Well, that's where the part that gets left out comes in. So now I'm going to walk you through the costs of operating an S-Corp, all right? Let's switch over here to my details tab. And you can say here, you can see right here, it says the true cost of running a business. This is the wage income that we're paying ourselves, $14,000. These are all the taxes that is going to be paid on this side here, okay? This down here is going to be where we get that administration cost from. And this is the grand total of everything that we pay from having the S-Corp status. So the FICA, which is the Social Security, the Social Security and Medicare, at $14,000, we pay 12.4, giving us $1,736. But remember, as a, this looks a little small. Let me blow this up here so we can see. There we are. All right. So FICA at $14,000 is 12.4%, giving us a total to pay of $1,736. But remember, As a employer or as an S-Corp, you only pay half on your W-2. The other half gets deducted. Then you have the Medicare, same here. But here's a new tax, which is the FUTA, the federal unemployment tax. That's going to be added to there, but that's deductible. The FIT, F-I-T, is the federal income tax. That is your personal income tax. I say you have to use the tables because that's going to vary for everybody depending on their situation. The UI, ETT, SDI, and PIT, those are all California specific taxes. So this may not apply to you, but I use it here because I'm in California. So when I'm helping my clients, this is what I use. But here is where some other things come in that we have to be mindful of. Remember, I stated that once you become an S-Corp, once you elect to be taxed as an S-Corp, you have to have payroll if your company is profitable, which it should be before you elect to become an S-Corp. So based on that, you're going to have, or you're going to incur payroll costs. That's why you see Gusto. I use Gusto. That's the one I recommend for my clients because as far as I know, they're probably the most inexpensive payroll company as of right now, as opposed to maybe ADP or Paychex. You can see Gusto. Let me bring it back up entirely. Gusto is $39 a month plus, as of the recording of this video, $6 a month per person you want to add on payroll. So annually, it's going to cost you $540 to run payroll. And then you'll see Xero. Xero is a bookkeeping software that I recommend. And you're like, okay, well, why do we need bookkeeping? Great question. Let me show you. Here is the Form 1120S. If you'll notice, it is 5 pages long. And one of the pages on the 1120S is this right here, the Schedule L. Notice that it says balance sheet per books. And it wants information from the beginning of the year, end of the year. This is what the bookkeeping is for, because in order to file an 1120S, you're going to have a balance sheet in order to complete this particular section of the 1120S. And you can do a balance sheet on your own. You can do a balance sheet using Excel if you want to, but most of the times it's better to use a bookkeeping software. So the software by itself is about, as of right now, $32 a month, $384 annually. Now, this is the amount if you were to do it by yourself. If you were to do everything by yourself, meaning you're going to do your own payroll, all you're going to do is pay for the software, meaning you're going to do your own bookkeeping, all you're doing is paying for the software. What you would save at $40,000 is about $1,725. So yes, on the surface, switching to an S-Corp at $40,000, if you're doing everything yourself, not bringing in nobody else to do anything, it can save you money. There it is right there. We've done the math. We ran the numbers. Boom. You would save at least $1,725. But let's be real. Are you really going to do it by yourself? Probably not. So let's look at some other numbers. Let me go back to the details here. So in most places, you don't have an FTB, right? That's for us here in California. So I'm going to leave that blank for right now. But let me pull up the admin fees. Let's say you want to pay somebody to do bookkeeping for you. Bookkeeping on average is going to be anywhere between $100 a month up to $300 a month. So let's just go with $100 a month here. So that's automatically $1,200 a year. Okay. The personal tax preparation, your personal tax return, it all honesty, it might change. It might not, depending on who you are, because as a single member LLC, you were reporting your income and expenses on the Schedule C. Here, when you're using an 1120S, that K1 is now going to be reported on the Schedule E. So technically, the Schedule C should disappear and be replaced with a Schedule E. But again, certain tax preparers, certain companies, charged different for Schedule C's and Schedule E, so it may vary. So, but for this example, let's just assume on average they charge the same price for a Schedule E with a K1 as they would a Schedule C. So let's assume that number is going to be $500. Okay, so it costs you $500 for your personal tax prep, but now you also have to pay for the tax preparation of the S-Corp. It has its own separate form, the 1120S, which we just saw. On average, that tax preparation for that particular form is about $950. Now, I have seen some where they may start at $750 and go up. I've seen some where they start at $2,000 and go up. It really all depends on where you're going to get your tax preparation done. And as the old saying goes, you get what you pay for. So I will be mindful of those who do it inexpensively. So we're going to say average $950 for the cost of the S corporation. So now that we have all these numbers in here, let's look and see exactly what happens to our savings. Look at that. Based on that, based on very low numbers, at $40,000, with all of the additional administration costs of having an S-Corp, your savings went away. It now costs you an additional $925 to have an S-Corp. Yes, you went from saving $1,700. That's if you were completely doing it yourself, you would save $1,700. But when you look at the reality, hiring somebody to do the bookkeeping, to do the payroll, the cost of the tax return, the cost of the 1120S, your savings went from a savings to an additional cost. Look at that right there. The numbers don't lie. I should have worn a shirt that said, run me them numbers, because that's just what we did. It would cost you $925 extra to be an S-Corp at $40,000. Something to think about. So that's why I encourage all of you, whenever you hear something on social media, especially when it comes to your finances and your taxes, by all means, please run those numbers. Make sure that it makes financial sense for you to do what's being said, because what works for the goose may not work for the gander, right? Hopefully I'm saying it right. I don't even know what a gander is. Most things come to mind is Gandalf, but whatever. So here we are. Let me put this back out here. We can see, here's the whole thing. Let me reduce this so we can put it all on the screen there. Net income, meaning profit after everything is said and done. We were left with $40,000. If we were to stay a single member LLC, yeah, we would pay $5,652 in taxes. Switching over, let me scroll down here. Switching over to an S-Corp, would bring that down to $3,000. So it would be a savings, but the cost to administer this amount right here, the minimum cost to administer an S-Corp would actually result in you paying more in taxes than it would save you. And again, my good people, that just don't make sense. The math wouldn't be mathing at that point. Paying more to say, but that seems to be the mentality right now, right? Like, spend all your money so you can reduce your taxes. Yeah, I reduced my taxes, but now I increased my overhead. So was there really a savings? No. Okay. Now, I'm going to say, for me, what I always advise my clients to do is switch over to that S-Corp when you reach 100,000. Oops. Let me get this number right. 100,000 in net profits. Now let's look at these numbers from the standpoint of 100,000 in net profits. But let me go over. I'm gonna keep everything the same. Let's just look at it. So here we are. Net amount, right, before wages and payroll, 100,000. That's what we made. If somebody was a sole proprietor, they would end up paying $14,130 in self-employment taxes. But let's say, you know what, at 100,000, I'm going to pay myself again 35%, leaving the numbers the same. That means on a W-2, I'm going to pay myself $35,000. I'm still going to have to pay $2,678 of Social Security and Medicare, which again, that's all self-employment tax is Social Security and Medicare. But as an employer, okay, the income from the business goes down to $65,000 from $100,000 because I got to deduct the wages. The payroll tax that I pay as an employer on behalf of the employee, which is myself, is still $2,678, but I do get to deduct that. The additional payroll taxes, which is, we looked in the details, is going to be the federal unemployment tax of $861. That also gets deducted. And the remaining amount, the $61,462, gets put on the K-1, which I put on my personal tax return. Now, as we can see, even with the administrative costs being the same, the $3,574, doing it at $100,000, I do actually save money. $4,340 is what I'm saving here. We can see that, and nothing has changed on the administrative side. Even if somebody here in California and we had to pay the $800 franchise tax fee, we still would save money because the savings doesn't outweigh the cost of administration minus the actual tax. So for me, and what I recommend is why y'all always hear me say, don't form an S-Corp until you have net profits of $100,000, because at that point, now we see the actual savings at that point. And of course, you know, I'm playing with it at 100,000, and that definitely gets us a couple of thousands worth of savings. So we can reduce the 100,000 maybe down to 90. But think about it, the more we reduce that 100,000, the more the savings go down. And if you want to say, hey, I want to break even kind of thing, then, you know, go by all means, play around with the numbers, see at what point will you break even. But the numbers you need to know, here it is right here. Let me go back over here to this screen. I'm gonna blow this up real big, so I want us to see this. The numbers you are going to need to know in order to make an accurate financial decision as to whether or not, or as to when switching to an S-Corp will be financially beneficial for you is this. You want to know how much you're going to have to pay annually in payroll costs. You want to know how much you're going to have to pay in bookkeeping, again, because you're going to need to have that profit and loss, because it's going to be required for the Form 1120S. Okay. You also want to know if you're going to hire a bookkeeper, what price. Again, bookkeepers start as, you know, $100 a month, with really $100 per hour. So if your books is going to be more than an hour, it could be more than that. But consider anywhere between $100 to $300 a month, maybe even more. Do the research for your area, who you're going to hire, how much they charge you. Plug that number in. That's how much that's going to cost you for the year. Factor in your personal tax prep. If you have a tax preparer, ask them, how much does it cost me to do for both? How much is it going to cost me to do an 1120S? How much does it cost me to add the K1 now to my tax return? Get those estimates, plug those numbers in there, and that's going to give you your administrative costs. And do the math. This is what I would have to pay taxes as a sole proprietor. This is what I would have to pay taxes as an S-Corp. The difference between the two, plus my administrative costs, is that going to give me a good enough savings where it's worth all of that additional administrative burden, all of that additional operational costs and things like that? Because another thing you also want to consider is your time. You know, do you want to put all that time and effort into breaking even? Or do you actually want to see some savings at some point? Again, everybody is going to be different. Every financial situation is going to be different. Just run the numbers. Make sure you understand what is going to benefit you. So That is it for me, family. Again, I appreciate you being here. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, giving it a thumbs up, hitting the bell icon. Always leave me a comment. I would love to hear what have you heard, what have you tried, or are you even considering an S-Corp? Definitely let me know in the comments why or why not. But as a side note, let me say this. Please do not start out the gate as an S-Corp. As you can see, if you're not making money out the gate initially, you do not want to spend all this money just because somebody said it's going to save your self-employment tax. If you have no profit, you're not going to pay self-employment tax anyway. Self-employment tax is based on a profit. If that amount is zero, well, then there's nothing to pay, so then there's nothing to try to save from. Kind of understand what I'm saying? Okay. So if you need additional information, by always, please check me out at the website at theselfemployedtaxguide.com, where you can get access to this information. I do believe there's a video I did a long time ago. I'll make sure I link it to the card up here somewhere, one of these areas. That kind of goes into depth of how an S-Corp works, what it does, and things of that nature. But that's it for me. I appreciate you watching. Know that I love you, and I will see y'all on the next one. Until then, peace.
Perfect.